So I'm going to create a new project and work with models, materials, and textures. So of course you want to make sure your last name is in there and your first name, blah blah blah, you know the drill. I'm just going to call it MMT for short, and then find that main folder, which there it is right there, my main folder on the desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder and call it, of course, my last name. You know the drill. I'm not going to add it here. And I'm going to save inside of that folder. And it's going to be 3D, so I'm going to create a project. And the first thing I'm going to do once Unity opens up is I'm going to make 4 folders in the projects window within the assets here. There are several ways you can do this. You can right click as we've been doing, or you can go to this create and find the folder and make your scenes. We're going to do scenes, models, textures, and materials. The first thing I want to point out is even though I selected 3D, Unity opened up in 2D. It's a default feature, and if I start importing my textures into a 2D fashion, they come in completely different than if I want them in 3D. So I need to change this. One, I can select this 2D option and click out of there, and I'm now in 3D. Or I can set the default feature to just open up into a 3D, and that's Edit, Project Settings, and then you want to go down to the editor, and then in the inspector window, in the editor window, default behavior mode, I actually want 3D. Thank you very much. Another feature we're going to work with later, just want to show you though, is Edit, Preferences, and then the external tools. You might want to make sure the external script editor is set to the Mono Develop built-in. Alright, let's get down to creating some textures and materials. First, let's create a 3D object. I'm going to go 3D object sphere. And we're going to bring the sphere in there. And I talk about these triangles. That's what they look like to me. That is not the technical term. Please note that. But I just say triangles. They're a mesh object. So this mesh object, and because of this game came in 2D, I need to bring in a light so we can actually see this. So now we can see it with the light, and you can see the mesh around the sphere. This sphere is the default, boring default material. Over here in your inspector window, default material. So I'm going to show you the basic simplicity of just creating a material that you can use for anything. So open your material folder, right click, create material. So once you create the material, you want to name it. And I like to name my things material underscore and what that is. So I'm just going to call this a ball. Hit my enter to accept. So I now have a material in my material folder, and I can manipulate it any way I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a simple color. So I select the red and maybe give it, if you look down here in your little preview window, you can see what's happening. Maybe give it a little bit of a metallic shine there, and then your smoothness shows what's going to happen in that area. You can change some of the other stuff, but we're good. So now I just want to use this material, and I can just simply drag it to my ball or any other object that is located in the scene. So let's talk about models. Models are actually 3D components that are created somewhere else and brought into the game or the project. So I talked to you in the text about a mushroom object. And here's the mushroom and a couple of textures right here. So one thing about importing models is you want to keep everything together. So as you can see, I have some other FBX files here for signs. These signs, if I bring them in fact, I'm just going to bring the right sign in. These are in another folder, saved on a thumb drive. I'm just going to click and drag it into my models folder. So what it's doing, it's bringing in all kinds of stuff. So it brought in some material, it brought in the file components, the textures, and it brought in the sign. If you import models like this and they make their own little components, don't move those around. Not good to do that. Let me go back to the actual mushroom. So I'm just going to bring the mushroom object in. So I click and I drag the mushroom object in. But I also know there are some textures for that mushroom object, so I might as well just drag them in to the texture folder. So I have a normal texture, which is kind of like a bump, and the texture. I'm just going to drag them in. Boom, they come in. Everything's fun, hunky-dory. File, save scene, and where does the scene go? Into the scenes folder. Starting to get a little repetitive now. File, save project. So let's go ahead and delete our sphere, zoom out a little, and find our mushroom. This mushroom was created in a 3D application that has a different X, Y, and Z components. So we are going to open this up and use our rotate tool. And do you remember the shortcut key? You can actually hover over it and it'll show you. But we'll rotate that to, kind of where it looks like it's standing up. I'm using my Alt and my normal click. It looks pretty good. So I actually want to create a material to add to this particular mushroom. So I can go into my materials folder. Guess what you're going to do? Create a material. Material underscore, and I'm going to call it shroom for short. And instead of changing the color, I'm going to click on the little radio button in the albedo and find the actual material there, and then come down to the normal map and choose the normal. I might get an error. It just all depends. It says this texture is not marked. Fix now. Okay, Unity wants to fix it. I'll let them fix it. Sounds good to me. So you can see here what that texture looks like, and the shine and the bumpiness on it. There's also some height maps, occlusions, and a few other areas. I do have a few of these. If you want to try them, send me a little inbox message and I'll get those to you. So I've created the material. Guess what? Click and drag it onto the mushroom. So let's take a look at that shroom. He's pretty low, so I think we should move him up into position here. We're going to position him. Let's see. 0, 0, 0. And it's disappeared on me, so I'm going to select it, hit F, and it zooms right in. Look at that. So we can see our mushroom is now textured. So you can find models pretty much anywhere. You can search the internet, you can make them yourself, or you can use the Unity Asset Store. Window, Asset Store. And what this does, if you are on the internet and you have logged in, it takes you right to the Asset Store, opens up a new window, and you can search for whatever model you are looking for. And I actually go for the free only stuff because, you know, I have a hard time paying for things that I could make myself. So you can see all of these are free for these mushrooms, remember, anything you add to your project will increase the file size, thus the performance of the game you are creating. So go ahead and find yourself a mushroom pack. We're just gonna click on one here and select download, and what happens is it starts downloading the process into Unity. You can see everything you're going to get here that's selected, and then you select import, and Unity actually imports that particular package into your project, and it will add it right here into your assets, and you can see right here it's been added. And because it was added on an outside feature, I'm not going to move it around. What I am going to do is close the Asset Store tab. So then I'm going to actually open up the prefabs folder, because these have made prefabs and we'll go over that later. But in the prefabs, I just click and drag these wonderful mushrooms on to the scene with this other one here. We'll just move it about. I could move it closer by using the actual positions here. Now to me, this doesn't look like it has any material on it. So guess what? You have your models and your materials, and I think I'll go with a green. Oh, look at that, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So oh, it did, it actually defaulted to this other one. I couldn't tell. How interesting is that? You have all these choices. I really like this package. I'm so glad I used it with you. So that, my friends, is models, materials, and textures. Go ahead and save your scene and save your project.